Sleep, a time to restore, to recharge, to escape. But what if it wasn't? For most, a restless night is a temporary inconvenience, but for some, no matter how long they sleep, it's never enough. Days blur together in a fog, and the world just feels out of reach. This is idiopathic hypersomnia, a condition that turns waking life into an endless fight against the pull of sleep. The word somnia, derived from Latin, means sleep or dream, and it's most commonly associated with insomnia, the inability to fall or stay asleep. Insomnia is widespread, affecting an estimated 10 to 30% of the global population, with around 10% suffering from chronic insomnia. But idiopathic hypersomnia, a condition that shares the root somnia yet exists on the opposite end of the spectrum, is far less known. Where insomnia keeps you from sleep, idiopathic hypersomnia pulls you into it, leaving even prolonged rest unrefreshing and daily life consumed by an overwhelming, unshakable sleepiness. It's incredibly rare, affecting about 0.001% of the general population, and its rarity mirrors its obscurity, often leaving those who suffer from it misunderstood or misdiagnosed. Other sleep disorders, like narcolepsy, are distinctly different. Narcolepsy is marked by sudden and uncontrolled episodes of sleep, and it's frequently accompanied by symptoms like cataplexy or sleep paralysis. In contrast, idiopathic hypersomnia doesn't include these dramatic interruptions. Instead, it's characterized by an all-encompassing exhaustion, prolonged sleep episodes, and extreme difficulty waking, even after sleeping for 10 or more hours. While narcolepsy disrupts wakefulness in sudden bursts, idiopathic hypersomnia blurs the line between sleep and wakefulness entirely, making every day feel like wading through a fog that never lifts. Understanding these differences is crucial, not just for raising awareness of idiopathic hypersomnia, but for highlighting how sleep can take on vastly different meanings for those living with these disorders. Much like how rarus in Latin means rare, idiopathic hypersomnia is a hidden struggle, living in the shadows of its better-known counterparts, despite being just as life-altering. Unseen, misunderstood, idiopathic hypersomnia affects thousands, but its name is still met with confusion, its reality drowned in misconceptions.
Hi, my name is Haley Wall. I'm an occupational therapist, and I've been diagnosed with idiopathic hypersomnia for about 7 years. I actually had to go through some of my medical records because I couldn't remember the first time that I started actually experiencing the tiredness is how I described it. But what I found was back in 2012. So I was 12 or 13. I started, bringing up to my doctors that I was feeling more tired than usual. And as, I grew up, I started getting more and more tired. I was sleeping a lot more, requiring a lot of naps. And whenever I would bring these concerns up to doctors, it, was attributed to anxiety or depression. And I'm also a type 1 diabetic. So it was also kind of all those things were what was concluded to cause these symptoms. It wasn't until I actually went into college that my eyes were opened to, okay, this probably is something a lot more than just those things. I lived in a very small dorm room with a roommate who I never met in my life before. She's now still my best friend. But she, she was the only one that I've ever really lived that closely with in a room. And she would say, well, why are you sleeping so much? Like, you sleep all the time. You're still so tired. And, didn't know. I just said, this is what I was told. So I have no reason to really question it. But the more it started impacting how I was engaging in my everyday life, from to my social life to my education, I realized, this is not normal. And I went back and told my doctors, this has got to be more. I brought my concerns to my psychiatrist at the time and my primary care doctor. And they are the ones that gave me a referral to a sleep specialist. So I was referred to Boston Children's to just meet with the neurologists who run the sleep clinic there, and they set up a sleep study for me. In terms of specialists and doctors that I had at that point in time, it was really, just my psychologist, my psychiatrist, my PCP, and my endocrinologist. I didn't really have anybody else at that point in time. I was 18, so that's where they saw, yes, your overnight sleep looks completely normal. There's no signs of sleep apnea, of restless leg syndrome, but the MSLT, multiple sleep latency test the next day that measures 5 naps saw that I was falling asleep within, I want to say, 4.6 minutes for each nap. So that cutoff is about 8 minutes. Even with having a full night's sleep that was undisrupted the entire night before, I was still able to fall asleep that quickly in those naps. I remember sitting down with my doctor and going through those results and then saying, like, yes, this is, if you had gone into REM sleep during these naps, that would have been considered narcolepsy, but we're seeing that didn't happen. So your diagnosis is idiopathic hypersomnia. They're telling you you have this wakefulness problem that you don't really feel that awake a lot, but we have no idea why. So that was a little confusing, but I think the major emotion when I first got the diagnosis was this huge wave of relief. It was, I am not crazy. I am not exaggerating. This is real. And, this is confirming everything that I've experienced over the last couple of years. I was born and raised in Massachusetts and attended school in Maine. So I lived in Maine for about 6 years. Currently, I'm living in El Paso, Texas. And that is due to my husband serving in the military. So we are here with him in the Army. I love a bunch of stuff, really. I love crafts. I love to go on adventures. I love to spend time with my husband and my dog. My family is the world to me. For a living, I'm an occupational therapist, currently a pediatric occupational therapist. And I've been loving that.
Oh my goodness.
He looks like a little border collie, but he's a big mutt. Yeah. Yeah. Sleep inertia, I have thought about a lot and how to kind of explain what that feels like. And what I've come to is this analogy of using a light switch with a dimmer. And so, when anybody wakes up, that light switch goes from off, being asleep, to on, you're awake. And that dimmer is that level of alertness, how fast it goes. And when I'm thinking of how that feels with IH, the second I wake up, yes, the light switch turns on, but that dimmer may just move up 1 or 2%. So it's still very much feels like I'm still sleeping. It happens when, it's a transitional state between being asleep and being awake, and it's just a very difficult time feeling that alert and wake to actually function. So, I also kind of compare it to anybody without IH that might go up maybe 5%. And then you get up, you go to the bathroom, you may come out and make a cup of coffee. At that point, someone without IH might be at 30%, 40%, 50%. Whereas with IH, for me personally, I feel it maybe jumps to 15 at the max. And, trying to do all of those morning routines and activities is a lot harder. Your decision capacity, being not impulse. What's the word I'm looking for? Reaction time. Reaction time is very off. I do find I'm more easily irritated at that point in the day, and it just takes an excessively long time to actually feel like I'm awake and functioning. So I do try to implement different things to help me have more time to wake up and get my body moving. But each day is a little bit different, but typically it's about 2 hours of time to actually feel functioning enough to start doing my day to day. I follow a lot of different routines and habits, both going to bed and waking up to support, the next day. One of the things I found most helpful is going to sleep around the same time every night, but also waking up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. So it helps my body stay in that consistent cycle of, okay, I'm going to bed at this time and I'm waking up at this time. So I found that helps even just a little bit wake up in the morning to get going versus, if I had if on the weekends I slept in for hours and hours, I do think it would make it a little bit harder for me to then transition back into the week. And that consistency I felt helped me a lot. I also set about 10 alarms with 5 minutes apart every single morning, blaring. So, those automatic behaviors that are associated with IH, I turn my alarm off without even knowing it. So there are times that I will do that so much that I completely sleep past all 10 alarms. It has gotten better throughout the years. I think the consistency is what's been the most helpful for me, but that is another thing, part of my routine that has helped me. The main part when I wake up that has been beneficial is immediately the first thing I do is take my dog for a walk. So I'm getting outside, and now it's a little bit colder, and the cold definitely helps me feel a little bit more awake. The movement, my body moving, and the sunlight actually helps, just feel even the slightest bit more awake. It may not be that long of a walk, 10-15 minutes, but it still helps me get prepared for the rest of the morning and not feel like I'm stuck in sleep so much, I guess. I still don't feel fully awake, but I'm not that stuck in that really low level of the dim. And then I'll come home. I usually will meal prep breakfast, so all I have to do is grab it out of the fridge and not have to spend a lot of time or energy cooking a meal. And I always want to make sure that I'm eating in the morning and I'm taking my medicines. And, also being a diabetic, it's just important to make sure I have that meal. I give myself about 2 hours extra time every morning. So if I don't have an obligation until 10 o'clock, I'm still up at 6:30, the latest, hopefully. Sometimes it doesn't work, but giving myself that extra amount of time to be able to wake up more has been really helpful. I don't do very cognitive demanding tasks during those times and just really kind of let my body do what it needs to do while not feeling this immense pressure to rush around when I'm not at the best. I'm not at my best that part of the day. I want to say it's about 2 or 3 months ago now, the most recent time. My grandmother passed away, and I was here and she was back in Massachusetts, so it was quite a distance and I wasn't able to be there during her final days. That took a massive toll on me emotionally, and very, very strong emotions I have noticed have had a massive impact on my IH symptoms. It definitely enhances and intensifies them to a level that's very overwhelming. During that week after I had found out that she actually had passed, I had such a hard time actually waking up. I missed every single alarm. I missed one of my first kids of the day for working. I am grateful that I have the flexibility to change or make up that appointment and, not have much of a penalty for it. But, you know, having or waking up to it's such a later time than usual definitely also affects my brain function. So it took a while for me to actually feel the effects of my medicine after taking them and getting up and just kind of feeling very flustered because I missed every single alarm. That was not usually isn't the case for me, but during those times of really high emotions, it's been something I've noticed happen more. That was a very sad situation, but just in general, stress in life has played a huge impact. And so, trying my best to practice stress management and really prioritize those pieces to make sure that I'm not overly stressed all the time. Um, Although at points it's very difficult to do that, it is something I consistently work to improve because that also, even regardless of the situation, big or small, it definitely plays a role in how my IH impacts me.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, she was struggling with Parkinson's for quite a long time. So, I mean, she's not suffering anymore. Let's just put it that way.
Are you the only person in your family with a sleep disorder?
No, actually. My mom has diagnosed sleep apnea. My sister does not have a diagnosis, but she does show a lot of the symptoms of whether it be IH or any of the sleep disorders, really. Um, my dad has MS. He has hypersomnia that's related to his MS. So it may not be his primary diagnosis for the hypersomnia, but we are a very medically complex family. But yeah, actually, my mom she has sleep apnea diagnosed. So it did not surprise me that, the more I learned about sleep disorders and after that diagnosis, it was not a surprise to see that, oh yeah, you did have a sleep disorder and that's why your sleep has not been the best throughout my whole life. I think that it's the culture of our society being so uh, it's very common for people to be very fatigued and have chronic burnout and just always being on the go. It is so common to have those types of symptoms. It could be from working really, really long hours. It could be from not getting enough sleep. You know, those are really important aspects to, I think, keep in mind when you're considering, what's going on with my sleep? Why don't I feel refreshed? So, in my case, I was getting plenty of sleep and it was undisrupted, but I still was feeling those effects. So just, trying to do whatever I could to even just improve my lifestyle a little bit more, nothing was helping. So at that point, that's, I think, the signs to start taking it a little bit more seriously and see maybe it is a sleep disorder and maybe I can get some advice and help for that. I think that is also important to highlight as well, the tired versus fatigued versus sleepy. You know, I am always tired. I never really feel awake. I honestly couldn't tell you the last time I felt fully awake. The sleepiness is a much more intense kind of feeling. It is, you are fighting every ounce of your body to not fall asleep. Instead of, you can sit in a spot and be tired. You can, do some certain things in your life and be tired, but still be able to do them. With the sleepiness waves that I get during those points, there's absolutely no other choice than to sit down and take a nap or sit down and just completely turn my brain off. Um, it is incredibly overwhelming of a feeling to, just have your eyelids shutting when you're trying so hard to fight your body to not do that. I try to implement preventative strategies to, not have that happen as often in public spaces or where my safety could be compromised. So, driving in the car, I always have the AC blasting so the temperature outside, because cold air for me has been a stimulating type of sense. Usually I'll call people in the car, so I'm cognitively engaged as well, or listen to a podcast or music. When I'm at work, I am cognitively engaged, so I don't necessarily have to try to implement anything much more than that. At home, it's a little bit different. I don't feel as unsafe as I would be in a different environment. So, if that sleepiness wave comes, there's no other choice that I have than to listen to it and, respect my body. It's telling me something and it's telling me to just rest. Um, and it's challenging. It's frustrating because there's things that I really want to get done sometimes and I just can't from those sleepiness waves. And, you know, movement has really helped me try to break out of them. It doesn't completely take it away, but, if I can push through some of those waves and not actually fall asleep, that's typically what I tend to do. Naps do not help me in any way. They actually make me feel a lot worse when I wake up from them. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge to cope with it. But, I try my best to be preventative, and if I have to be reactive toward it, then do whatever I can to just make sure my needs are met and my body is safe. I take medication mm, technically 4 times a day. Um, I will take right when I wake up, and then about an hour after, I take a longer acting um, dose. I'm trying to think of the phrasing. I'll take a longer acting dose about an hour and a half after my first instant acting dose, and then midday and early evening to, help me with each aspect of the day broken into different periods. So I also take another medication that I can't eat or have anything else for about 30 minutes to an hour after I take it. So that is what I take absolutely first thing when I wake up, and, going on my walk with Ryder and just, moving very slowly usually at that time takes up that half hour to an hour. And right before I have breakfast, I'll take my IH medication. That's usually around 7 o'clock. 7:30. It's usually around 7:30 in the morning. And then I'll take my second dose, the longer acting, around 9-ish, 9:30. So yes, right before I leave for work. The afternoon dose is around 12:30, 1 o'clock. And my last dose is around 5.
Have there been moments where you felt like giving up? And if so, what kind of kept you going?
Absolutely. It is unfortunately inevitable to feel like you get to a place where symptoms just feel so crazy and unmanageable that, it would be easier to just give up and stop trying and, not push your body so far to the limit. However, it all comes back to who I've surrounded myself with, my values in having a quality of life that brings me joy and fulfillment. There are many times that I would just cry and cry, wanting to give up, in school too. When I was in college, grad school, it was incredibly hard. Just because I got through it, I think a lot of people don't understand the struggle it took to get through it. And just because now it's my victory, it came with a lot of obstacles. I could sit here and say all these different things, and, we each are our own individual people. We're each going to have our own individual lives and experiences, and it's not the exact same. So I really, really want to get the message out that, comparing yourself to somebody else, or even comparing yourself to your past self, is not always the most efficient way to go about it. It's about, trying to be as present as you can and recognizing you're doing whatever you can. Your best effort is the absolute only thing you can do, and, taking pride in that. And knowing you're not alone in this journey has been a huge piece that has helped me through it. And just being yourself. It's okay. IH isn't a character flaw. IH is it's a neurological sleep disorder, and these things are out of your control. So, show yourself the love and compassion that you would show somebody you love, because you deserve that too.